I'm going to tell you something not many are willing to say out loud. I'm 86 years old and I've seen the inside of too many nursing homes. As a doctor who's walked those halls and listened to the silent cries behind closed doors, I feel a responsibility to speak, not just as a physician, but as an old man who has lived long enough to know that sometimes what glitters on the outside hides something deeply troubling on the inside. Families trust nursing homes with their most fragile loved ones, and sometimes that trust is misplaced. Today, I want to share the dark truth about nursing homes. 6 hidden dangers every family should know before making that life-changing decision. What I'm about to say is not just memory or hearsay. It's backed by research. But more than that, it's backed by what I've seen with my own eyes and heard with my own ears. The first truth is one of the hardest to admit: neglect. Plain, quiet, cruel neglect. It doesn't always come in the form of bruises or broken bones. Sometimes it's a patient left too long without food or water, or a call bell ringing for 20 minutes with no answer. I once stood at the edge of a hallway in a well-rated facility and watched as an old woman cried softly for someone to take her to the bathroom. No one came. Later, a nurse's aide told me, "We're short-staffed today." But I knew that wasn't a one-day problem. A study from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services in 2020 found that over 94% of nursing homes were cited for deficiencies, and more than 15% were cited for serious deficiencies that could cause actual harm. That's not an isolated problem. That's a system that's failing. The second danger is something families don't expect: over-medication. I've seen it again and again. Seniors who were once sharp and chatty become withdrawn and drowsy within weeks of arriving. Antipsychotic drugs are often given not because the patient needs them, but because the staff needs them to be quiet. The Journal of the American Geriatric Society published a study revealing that 1 in 5 residents in nursing homes were given antipsychotic medications without a diagnosis that justified it. That's not care. That's chemical restraint. It's the slow stealing of a person's clarity just to make the job easier. I remember a man named Harold who played chess with me every Wednesday. After being transferred to a nursing facility, within 2 weeks he couldn't remember how the night moved. He hadn't gotten dementia overnight. He had been drugged into silence. Third, loneliness. And this one will break your heart if you let it. Nursing homes are full of people, but loneliness hangs heavy in the air. Human connection fades when routines replace relationships. Staff may care, but they're rushed. There's no time to sit, to listen, to laugh. The National Institute on Aging has shown that social isolation significantly increases a person's risk of premature death. Comparable, they say, to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That's how dangerous it is. I've seen rooms where 2 people sleep just feet apart and never say a word. I've seen birthday cakes delivered and left untouched because no one remembered how to smile anymore. And I've seen how being surrounded by people can still feel like being completely alone. Fourth is something more hidden: financial exploitation. You might not see it on the first day, but over time, small fees start adding up. Unnecessary services, charges for physical therapy sessions that never really happen. My colleague Dr. Eva Klein conducted a study that showed more than 30% of families reported unexplained charges on nursing home bills. When your loved one is vulnerable, it becomes easy for a system to take advantage. One family told me they were being charged for brand-name medications that had already been switched to generics years ago. When they asked why, they got silence. The billing departments are complex. The laws are hard to navigate. And by the time you realize what's happened, thousands of dollars may be gone. The fifth danger is poor infection control. You would think that after the COVID-19 pandemic, every nursing home would have strict protocols in place. But that's not always the case. In fact, a study in Health Affairs found that 2/3 of nursing homes had infection control violations even before the pandemic began. What does that look like in reality? It means caregivers going room to room without washing their hands. It means shared bathrooms being cleaned once a day when they should be cleaned several times. It means patients developing urinary tract infections that could have been prevented. I once treated a woman who developed sepsis because her catheter wasn't changed for 4 days. 4 days, she survived, but just barely. This kind of risk is not always obvious to families who visit for short periods during clean and controlled hours. And now the sixth danger: Loss of dignity. This is perhaps the one that pains me most deeply. Dignity is not a luxury. It is the right of every human being, especially in their final years. But I've seen that dignity stripped away. When a person is diapered instead of helped to the toilet simply because it's quicker. When meals are served cold on plastic trays without a word. When decisions are made without asking the resident what they want. That silent erosion of self is devastating, and it leaves behind something worse than illness. It leaves behind despair. A study by Dr. Stephen Sabat, a psychologist from Georgetown University, found that when elderly individuals felt ignored or disrespected, their cognitive decline accelerated, not because of disease, but because of emotional abandonment. I sat with a woman once who whispered to me, "I feel like I don't matter anymore." That is what the loss of dignity sounds like. Now you may ask, are all nursing homes bad? There are good people in the system. I have met nurses who weep after shifts, aides who sneak in extra pudding for someone who missed dessert. There are facilities where laughter echoes in the hallways and where patients are treated like family. But what I am telling you is this: good does not erase the risk of the bad, and you need to look deeper than the polished brochures and smiling websites. Visit at odd hours, ask uncomfortable questions, talk to residents when no one is looking, study the staffing ratios, look at the state inspection reports, trust your gut. Because the truth is, many families don't see the problems until it's too late, until their loved one is hospitalized, until unexplained bruises show up, until the light fades from someone's eyes. This isn't about fear. This is about knowledge. And knowledge is the most powerful tool we have. We must advocate for our elders. We must demand better. And we must never, ever assume that just because someone wears a name tag, they are doing right by the people they serve. Watch, listen, speak up, and never let a system, no matter how institutional or impressive, take away the humanity of someone you love. I'm telling you all of this not because I want to scare you, but because I want to prepare you. Because when we speak the truth, when we shine a light on the dark corners, we give ourselves a chance to change things. My hope is that more families will start asking better questions, that more facilities will be held accountable, and that fewer old men and women will feel forgotten inside places that were meant to care for them. You see, we do not age just to be discarded. We age to be honored. And if you remember that, if you carry that truth with you, then maybe, just maybe, we can begin to fix what is broken. So if you are listening to this now, whether you're 60 or 70 or 86 like me, or you are the son or daughter of someone facing this decision, I beg you, do not hand over the keys to someone's final years without opening every door. Look closer, dig deeper, be present, and fight for the kind of care that you would want for yourself. Because every elder matters, every story matters. And what happens behind those doors matters more than we've been willing to admit. Until now. How do we build a future where no senior is left behind? I've lived long enough to see the world change in ways that once felt unimaginable. Technology has advanced, medicine has leapt forward, our cities have grown taller and our lives faster. Yet in the midst of all this progress, something essential has been forgotten. Our elders, our storytellers, the people who built the foundation of everything we stand on today. Too often they are left behind, discarded, overlooked. And I ask myself, how did we let this happen? How can we, a society so proud of its advancements, allow our seniors to grow old feeling invisible? And more importantly, how do we build a future where no senior is left behind? This is not just a question of kindness. It is a question of responsibility, of values, of how we define dignity in a world that claims to be modern and compassionate. Studies have shown that social isolation among older adults increases the risk of premature death by nearly 30%. That is according to research published by the National Academy of Sciences. That's not a statistic, that's a warning. Loneliness kills, and our society in many ways has made it worse. We moved towards smaller families. We built communities that prioritize speed over connection. We created systems that place the elderly in care, often out of sight and out of mind. We told ourselves that professionals would handle it, that policies and facilities would take care of them. But care without connection is not care at all. It is procedure, it is paperwork, and that is not enough. So, how do we rebuild what we've lost? The first step is to change how we see aging itself. Growing old is not a decline. It is a continuation of life's journey, rich with wisdom and experience. Yet many seniors feel like burdens rather than blessings. I have met too many who say the same heartbreaking words. I don't want to be in the way. That is not a sentiment that emerges in isolation. It is the result of a culture that celebrates youth but turns away from age. A future where no senior is left behind begins with re-education. From childhood, we must teach our young that aging is not something to fear, but to honor. Countries like Japan have done this well. They revere their elders. They embed respect into every level of daily life. Studies from the World Health Organization show that cultures with high respect for elders report lower levels of depression among the elderly and higher levels of overall well-being. We also need to look closely at how we structure our communities. Seniors should not be tucked away in institutions unless absolutely necessary. They should live among us, integrated, included, thriving. Cities can be designed with walkable paths, accessible public transportation, and community centers that offer more than bingo nights. In the Netherlands, there are neighborhoods specifically created to mix younger families with older adults. These spaces naturally create connection. They break the isolation, and the outcomes are promising. Seniors report higher life satisfaction, better physical health, and improved memory. That's not just architecture. That's human-centered design. Then there's the matter of healthcare. We need systems that treat seniors not as a collection of symptoms, but as whole people. Healthcare should not be reactive, it should be preventive. Regular mental health checkups, nutritional support, home visits that look beyond the chart to the person sitting in the chair. One study published in The Lancet found that integrated care models, where medical professionals work closely with families and social services, reduce hospitalization rates among seniors by nearly 25%. Imagine how many lives could be extended, how much suffering could be prevented if we simply work together across disciplines to care deeply rather than just efficiently. Technology also has a role, but it must serve, not replace, human touch. Devices that monitor heart rates, alert family members of falls, and schedule medications are valuable tools, but a screen can never replace a hand to hold. Seniors should not be expected to navigate apps and machines alone. They need guides, not more barriers. I once sat with a 92-year-old man who had been given a tablet to connect with his doctor. He didn't know how to turn it on. What he needed was not more software. He needed someone to show up, to sit beside him, to look him in the eyes. That's the kind of support that creates trust and healing. We must also address economic insecurity. Millions of older adults live on fixed incomes, and far too many live below the poverty line. According to the National Council on Aging, over 25 million Americans over the age of 60 live with incomes below 200% of the federal poverty level. That means choosing between medications and meals. That means a life spent counting every penny while the rest of the world moves on. A future with no senior left behind must include stronger safety nets, affordable housing, access to nutritious food, subsidized healthcare. These are not luxuries. They are the basics of a life lived with dignity. But perhaps most importantly, we need to reconnect families, not just biologically, but emotionally. We need to slow down enough to call, to visit, to listen. I often tell people, don't wait for a funeral to realize how little time you gave someone who gave you everything. Grandparents have stories that textbooks can't teach. They have love that does not ask for anything in return. And when we lose them to loneliness, we lose a piece of ourselves. Rebuilding these bonds may be the most powerful medicine of all. This is not an impossible dream. It is a necessary one. The way we treat our elders is the clearest mirror of who we truly are. And one day, every single one of us will stand in those shoes. We will age. Our bodies will slow. Our minds will forget. And when that time comes, we will hope that someone sees us, that someone cares enough to fight for us. So we must begin now, in our neighborhoods, in our policies, in our own hearts. A future where no senior is left behind is not built by grand speeches or flashy programs. It is built by daily choices, the decision to include rather than exclude, to slow down instead of rush past, to listen instead of dismiss. If we each do our part, the world will shift, and the next generation of elders will not have to beg to be remembered. They will already belong. Because in the end, this is not about aging. It is about being human. And every human deserves to grow old with love, respect, and the deep, abiding knowledge that they still matter.